The Roberto Clemente Museum is located at 3339 Penn Avenue in Pittsburgh, PA. It showcases the world's largest exhibited collection of art, literature, photographs, and related materials which focuses on Roberto Clemente, his teammates, his personal life, and his humanitarian causes. Recently, Lexi Kamphaus, special assignment host of the Veterans Channel, spoke with Duane Rieder, founder and curator of the museum, about the life and times of Roberto Clemente.
Hello, my name is Lexi Kamphaus, and I am a special assignment host for the Veterans Channel. And today we are here at the Roberto Clemente Museum in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, sitting down with founder and curator Duane Rieder, talking about not only Roberto as a baseball player, but his enlistment in the U.S. Marine Reserves. Welcome, Duane, here to our program. First and foremost, we're sitting here in the lobby of the Clemente Museum. How did this even come about for you?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Well, I'm a commercial photographer, and I bought this old firehouse off the city of Pittsburgh, and it was condemned at the time, and I started fixing it up. And while I'm fixing it up, I get asked to do a calendar on Roberto Clemente through my photography business. And at the same time I'm working on this building, I'm doing the calendar, and I get to fly to Puerto Rico and meet his widow Vera. And in Puerto Rico, I see that everything in their house is getting wet and moldy from tropical storms, hurricanes. Their house got flooded by Hugo in 1989, and a lot of their things were ruined, and mostly the photographs just being paper. And so they got wet and moldy, and she asked me if I would start fixing the photos. And so I built an archive of photos to help her that led into kind of what this is today. So it all just grew from photography.
And tell us a little bit about how did this collection even get going?
Well, I started the photos, and then what happened is I started collecting pieces that would go along with the photos to tell stories. And as I'm doing that, I'm hanging out with the Clemente family, and once she embraces you at the inner circle, all the friends of Clemente then trust you as well, because she's on the top, right? And so then all of a sudden Elsa Coulong, who was friends with Roberto, and Phil Dorsey and Les Banos and all those people now are trusting me, and they're giving me stories. And when you start hearing stories from the horse's mouth, not just read in a book or on TV, and you know it's the real stuff, you know it's the truth. And so when I'm hearing all these stories about how incredible he was, you don't know all that stuff out there. You know that he gets 3,000 hits, and you know that he won an MVP for the World Series in '71, and some of the baseball trivia. But you know, did you know that he was going to Children's Hospital every chance he could and telling them, do not send the cameras. If the media shows up here, I'm tapping out and leaving. He would do that with the Pittsburgh Center for the Blind. He'd go and sit with the blind kids every Friday, and he told the woman, you don't tell anybody. If they show up, if the media comes, I'm not coming back.
And why do you think he did that?
I think because he was doing it for the right reason, where, you know, a lot of people today, they want the cameras on them to get some publicity. He wanted no publicity. He knew what kind of person he was. That meant he was doing it from the heart. And he just really wanted to help the kids. And anytime that he could turn anything positive, anything that anybody was going to honor him for, he would turn it into a fundraiser for Children's Hospital. He'd be like, don't bring any gifts for me. Bring stuff that we can donate to the kids. If you wanted to bring cash, and you want to donate stuff that we can take to Children's, that's what I want to do. So he was doing it from the heart, and that's what I love about him.
Did you think that hearing all these stories about him even further motivated you to create what this is now a staple in Pittsburgh?
Well, that's when we decided we've got to do something better than just an archive of photos. People don't know even what that is. And what happens is Vera Clemente, this is the miracle moment. Vera and the family comes here in 2006, a month before the All-Star game at PNC Park. And they come over here, and it's my photography studio. There's no Clemente on this whole floor. And Vera says, Duane, would you be willing to have the Clemente family party here? It's a big room. It's really cool here. We'll have a party. And I was like, but Vera, there's no Clemente stuff down here. It's all upstairs in a back room, and I know your guest list, they're older, and their knees, Manny Sanguian hasn't gone up steps in 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are we going to do? She goes, well, it's okay. We'll have the food and the wine and the dancing down here. And I went, dancing? There's going to be dancing? And she's like, well, we're Puerto Ricans. We dance. And I'm like, oh, I'm in. I'm all in. So she goes back to Puerto Rico for 30 days, and I did all this in 30 days just for her party.
Wow.
And so when they came back the night before the party just to do a run through and check things out, and they brought 27 Clementes that had never been in this building before, and they all came in, and they were all just like, where are we? What is this? Who is that guy? Is he Puerto Rican? And Vera's like, no, he's Italian and German. And so that was the night that, you know, it was just, she was proud, and she made a comment that it's like a museum here now, Duane. And I was like, that sounds better than archive.
Wow.
Right? No one knows.
So Vera really kind of got the ball rolling on this.
Yeah, without her, I wouldn't be here today.
Wow. So what's your relationship, now we know that Vera's unfortunately passed away, what's your relationship with the family now?
It's good. They're part of this place, and one of the boys always has to be on the board. It was the relationship with Vera stated that if Vera passes, one of the boys steps onto the board of directors in her place. Okay. And so they're a part of this. And they love it here. You can imagine if this was your dad's place.
Yes.
Right? This is home for them as well.
Yeah. Well, it's incredible. I've been here just a couple times, but even really looking through everything, it's incredible. And before we get into what Roberto was mainly known for, and everyone knows about his baseball career, but a lot of people don't know what he started out as a Marine Corps reservist. I didn't know about that before a couple weeks ago, and I think that it really shows his character. So what a lot of people don't know is that he enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps under a different name than Roberto Clemente. He did Roberto C. Walker.
Correct.
Do you know the story behind why he did that?
I do. Well, first of all, let's go to the beginning, right? So draft papers go to Forbes Field for Roberto, and Joe L. Brown, the general manager, opens up that envelope, and I've got the envelope and all the paper on the wall. He opens that up. The Pirates are in first place in 1958 when he gets this piece of paper saying that Clemente's being drafted. And a lot of people were like, what is 58? There wasn't really anything. It was Suez Canal was going on, and they were implementing a draft thinking that something was going to happen. And so Joe L. Brown's like, whoa, we can't let this happen. What if we talk to the draft board and we get him to enlist in the Marine Reserves? Then we don't have to give him up for the season. So they get every politician in the Pittsburgh area to help them pull that off. And so that's what happens. They get him out of the draft. He goes into the reserves. He doesn't have to leave till the 58 season's over. Okay. We don't win the division. We end up in second place. He goes to Parris Island, South Carolina for boot camp for 6 months. But they let him out of he doesn't have to do the weekend warrior stuff because he agrees to let them use him for promotional photos, and he'll show up at an event and talk about the Marines and stuff like that. So they were going to kind of use him to promote the Marines to other kids and help get recruits. And so that's what happens. And so he basically does boot camp in Parris Island, gets in the best shape of his life. Yeah. And the miracle moment for me in this building is there's some photos of a guy on the wall, Bob Terrell, who was his drill sergeant. He shows up here at my front door because he's traveling around the country. He wrote a book on being a fair human being and attributed it to meeting Roberto in Parris Island. Yeah. And so that's when Bob tells me that Roberto set the Marine record for pull-ups. He does 54 chin-ups. He said most recruits could do 10 to 15. Clemente set that record. It stood for 35 years. Wow. And I know Clemente himself said on record, the boot camp helped him get in the best shape of his life. It helped out with his back issues that he had going into baseball, and he put on 10 pounds of muscle. I mean, 54 pull-ups, I feel like you would have to have a decent amount of muscle on you. Yeah. And just as him graduating boot camp, him leaving, him becoming one of the breakout stars of boot camp. He was a squad leader in his class. He was described as stellar. Now, are you surprised
by hearing stories about him that he just went above and beyond, just something that he was pretty much thrown into.
Yeah, that's pretty much his personality and his way of life. If he was going to do something, he was going to do it to the best of his ability, and he just happened to be, very fast and very good shape. And even though he says he got in the best shape of his life in boot camp, because if you think about it, baseball players, they throw balls and hit balls and throw, and so that's the two things that's the only two things he ever worked on his whole life, except for throwing a javelin in high school, and he almost made the Olympic team. So that's what built up his shoulder muscle in his right arm. And so that's why when you see him with a shirt off, he's got big shoulders.
And that also makes sense because what a lot of, again, people don't know, he qualified as a sharpshooter in the Marines, and with I believe it's an M14 rifle, which is old school, it's heavy, and you have to have a very, very strong right arm because your last qualification is standing, holding that rifle. And even today, even back then, not a lot of people did that.
No.
And he was one that just excelled, and he was just a natural leader, which went into the baseball field.
Right.
And so when he graduated the private first class. Now, and what does that mean for you?
Well, it's awesome, and if you go back to where it says, Private Roberto C. Walker.
Yes.
That was like when I unearthed, so the paperwork that's all on the big wall here, that all came together in a group of paper, and I was going to pay. It was very expensive, and I almost had to pass on it. The reason I didn't is when I saw the envelope that he signs, Private Roberto C. Walker, on beautiful stationery with a Lincoln 4-set stamped Parris Island, South Carolina, with that the beautiful paperwork that it's on. When I saw that, I'm like, okay, I've got to get. The guy wanted to sell it all together. I'm like, I've got to get this to get that letter in that envelope because that might be the only one in the world.
Right.
And the Marines, I'm pretty sure, were happy when they saw Roberto C. Walker. They didn't have to tell anybody in his platoon that he was a baseball player for a while. They kept it a secret until they broke out the baseball equipment.
Yeah.
And then they were like, that guy's really good at this sport. And he's like, well, my real name's Clemente.
Right.
So for me, that's one of the biggest moments in this building is when I saw that envelope and that letter, my brain went cuckoo, and I was like, I've got to acquire this, whatever it takes. And so I did a lot of wheeling and dealing to get the paperwork on that.
Well, we
wall.
appreciate it, and we'll show a little bit more about that later.
Well, did you know that the Marine Hall of Fame people came here? I gave them a tour. They're setting up, they're putting him in I guess it's the Marine Sports Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah.
So they come here. They can't find anything at Quantico or in any of the files anywhere because they're looking up Roberto Clemente. But he's Clemente Walker in the Marines. And when they see that on there, they almost had a cracked brain. They were all like, oh my God, we got to get back there and look through the W file because he's Walker in the Marines. And so a lot of people don't know that was his mother's maiden name.
Yeah, and so, I wonder, just in conversation, how many people even still refer to him as Roberto Walker, because I know he does have a little crossover with formality of him claiming the last name Walker, and it throws a lot of people off. But as far as him being in the Marines, graduating, all while still playing baseball, he then had to tackle being enlisted as a reservist and during baseball season. So did his family ever talk to you about what that was like, him reporting back to South Carolina, Washington, D.C.?
See, Vera doesn't meet Roberto till 1964, and so most of that's going to be finished by then, right? So he's in boot camp in 58. By 64, she just knows a little tiny bit that he's showing up here or there for a photo op, or like I say, he'll join in on a meeting somewhere and stand there and talk to kids and stuff and use his kind of celebrity status. So I'm the one who gets to tell her and the Clemente family here for our grand opening that he was even drafted into the military. She didn't know anything except for that he was in the Marine Reserves.
Right.
So I get to tell them kind of like the whole story, and that's when they really were like.
Well, and I think that also shows just how humble he is. Like his own wife and family, he kept that secret. That was part of his life before he even met them.
Yep.
And I think that just shows to his character, and that he wasn't all about me,
Right.
look at this, look what I did.
Yep.
You would almost have to attribute the Marine Corps to his work ethic and his drive during that World Series run.
And that's what got him in really good shape.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
When he comes out of boot camp, his career really starts launching right then. If you look at the whole career. Pre-Marines, he's not doing that great. He's not Rookie of the Year, and all of a sudden he's in the Marines in 58, comes out of there 59 in really good shape. We go into the series in 60. 61's his breakout year where he just starts killing it, winning silver bats and gold gloves and MVP of the All-Star game. So I think that that helps really launch his career and makes him a superstar because he's in the best shape of his life.
And going into more of his baseball career after that, we know he was debuted with the Pirates in 1955, but like you said, he wasn't really all that of a breakout star. He was 24 years old. He was just trying to, get his feet wet in the league. And then throughout his career, the 60-61 era, right in his prime of his physical drive and throughout his reservist career with the Marines, we all know that he was the great one. He was the first Hispanic player to be MVP. He was the first Hispanic player to be World Series MVP. How do you feel having all of this and what that means to you and having this here in Pittsburgh?
Well, I mean, I was doing this all for Vera, just to make her proud and make sure that she had stuff that she could come and utilize and have a place when she was in Pittsburgh, just to come and, she struggled her whole life. When he dies abruptly, she then has to carry on. So to have all the stuff, the collection here and safe, and for people to get to see it, it makes me feel very good inside. And that, we know that nothing's going to happen to this stuff because things get ruined and lost and burned in fires and given away. And, and so to have this stuff here intact, and it helps us keep his legacy going, it makes me feel proud every day of my life. I mean, it's an honor to have this stuff here, the gold glove trophies, the silver bat upstairs. I mean, this is a pretty awesome collection, and thank God it's here and it's safe.
I know, and coming from someone who's from Pittsburgh, raised a Pirate fan, I have a strong military background in my family. I cannot thank you enough.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm glad I got to tell the Clementes. And we talk about that. When I talk about the big wall of all the paper here and all the stories, I say, Bob Costas' favorite piece is the 56 documents with Branch Rickey, and some people love the wedding stuff, but my favorite thing on the whole wall, and I tell the story at least once a day, maybe more, that the military stuff is my favorite because of no one knew a lot of this stuff about him.
It's so rare.
And to get to meet Bob Terrell, and just to go back for a minute about him shooting the rifle, right? If you think about it for a minute, baseball players also have to have great eyes, right? And like you were saying, the shoulders, that helps them hold that, and the confidence.
Yeah.
The guy was very confident. So when you're looking at the bullseye with that rifle, and he sees it, bip, boom, done. Where a lot of people, oh wait, I don't know if I, and then you start second guessing yourself. Roberto's confident. And I love that story when Bob Terrell tells us that everybody was rushing up to him and saying, wow, you've obviously shot a rifle a lot. No, this is my first time. That's the first time he ever shot a rifle in his life, was in the Marines, right? And at boot camp.
Wow.
And so for him to be that good, it just goes to how confident, how strong he was. And then the Marines gave him that ability they taught him how to do that quickly, and he's a fast learner, boom. So to learn that stuff and to be able to tell those stories and get some Marines in here once in a while to tell them that.
And I think that, even people who weren't in the Marines, being in the Marine Corps boot camp in the 50s was no joke.
Yeah.
I feel like, not coming from experience, but I feel like it was a lot more hardcore than it is even today. So a lot of respect for him, and he is known as a hardcore Marine in the community.
That's awesome.
Given his accomplishments in the Marine Corps that carried over into baseball, Semper Fi, Roberto Clemente, and Ura, Roberto, Ura.
Nice. That's awesome.
So we have ventured into the 71 World Series room where one-of-a-kind pieces are, especially this wall, which is kind of incredible. Yeah. So you have a few Gold Glove awards, you have the World Series trophy, you have all of Clemente's Dapper Dan awards. Tell us a little bit about how you acquired this.
Well, they all came from different places.
Okay.
Auctions, eBay, a couple people donated a few things. A board member donated a Dapper Dan award. This actually belongs to a guy, Nick Julius from Consol Energy. He's a big collector, and he was on our board here for a while, and he allows us to keep that here. It's Willie Stargell's World Series trophy. No one knows where Clemente's is. The family never had it. The Pirates didn't have it. No one's ever seen it.
Wow.
So I'm hoping.
So maybe if someone out there sees it,
please, if anybody knows,
bring it to us.
It should be here, right?
It should.
And he may have gotten the full size one. So that's a miniature. If you go to the Pirates, they
have the big monster ones.
Roberto was the MVP of that World Series.
Right.
So he might have been given a full size one. So hopefully someday that'll turn up. The interesting thing about these cubby holes, we created this for firemen's helmets and buckets. No idea of a Clemente Museum here, right?
Right.
The crazy thing is there's 12 cubby holes and he wins 12 Gold Gloves in a row.
Right.
So someday I could have 12 Gold Gloves sitting in there. That would be awesome.
I know, we hope so.
Yeah.
So what is the significance? So this Gold Glove, the very, very bright one, it was from 71.
Yeah.
So the color is a little bit different on this one. Is this one older?
Yeah, that one's older and it's maybe possibly a little faded, but they all were a little different.
Right.
Each year just a little different.
Because they're one-of-a-kind pieces. They don't mass-produce Gold Gloves. Even to this day, they make them specifically at that time.
Yeah, and they're not heavy metal. So if you could actually put that glove on and play catch. It's a gold lame material.
Okay,
So you could actually put your hand in there. And that's the reason I now have these on there, because once in a while I'd be given a tour and I'd be leaving this room and I'd look back and
someone's trying,
and I'd be like, wait, you can't touch Clemente's gold. You'll wear the gold off of it. And they're like, I want to see how big his hand was.
Oh my gosh.
Those gloves technically weren't made for,
that wasn't his specific glove. Right. Well, this is incredible. Now, what are the two little statues up there?
So this one's called Proud as a Peacock, and it comes from the last photo ever taken of Roberto. Right, so after the 3,000th hit, he goes into the playoffs against the Cincinnati Reds, hits the last hit of his life, and does that on second base.
And that is that pose after the tip of the cap?
Yeah, so
a
week and a half after, in the playoffs in Cincinnati at Riverfront Stadium, he gets a hit and does that. And so he's already asked people at that moment to be with Vera when he dies in a plane crash.
Wow.
So I think that right there, he's thanking God for 18-year career, this wonderful career, and the life that he's had. And it's probably the last time he's ever going to be in a pirate uniform.
Wow.
And so pretty heavy.
That's really heavy.
And that's a miniature of the statue.
The statue.
Magnet sculpture, sculpted at, it's now at PNC Park.
Yes.
At Three River Stadium. So pretty cool stuff on that wall.
Well, this wall is very, very special. And then throughout this whole room is, well, we call it the 1971 room, but it's incredible the memorabilia you have here.
I tell people in my tours, this room's chock full of nuts. Like it's just layer on top of layer and full of just really incredible stuff. A lot of smalls and a lot of little trophies and rings and checks and cards and stuff, but it also engulfs everybody on the 71 team.
Right.
We've got Mazeroski and Steve Blass and our man Manny Sanguillen.
Yes. One
of Roberto's best friends on this planet. So we got to represent Manny, and this used to be the Manny Sanguillen wing at one point. And so it's evolved through the years. And right now, with the 50th year anniversary of the 71 World Series, we wanted to have a little bit of everybody in here.
And because I still see Manny on a semi-regular basis at the games. He still comes when he can.
Yep.
If it's decent weather, Manny's still there. And even to this day, he gets a little sentimental.
Very
So
emotional.
I would love to see what Manny would his reaction to everything.
When the plane's down, right? He's diving with the Navy divers in the ocean, and when they scrapped the mission, they had to pull Manny out of the water. He was like, "No, I don't want to quit. I want to find my friend."
Wow.
They pulled him out of the water. So yeah, he gets pretty emotional and pretty worked up.
And here's a display of one of Roberto's former best friends and former Pirate broadcaster, Steve Blass. And then moving on into letters. Now these are the originals.
These are the originals of everything that was taking place. And this is when the draft papers were going to Joe L. Brown at Forbes Field. He opens that up, not Clemente. Clemente's out on playing the Dodgers in LA, and they're saying, don't sign anything. We'll get you around this and we'll get you to the reserves. And Roberto's like, hey, if that, whatever works for you,
Right.
makes sense.
So this was March 28th, 1958, unsigned.
Yep.
And it is from the draft board.
Yep.
That's crazy.
That's pretty cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah. Then it goes to Forbes Field. Is also, why would the draft papers and stuff go to Forbes Field? It's kind of...
And it's to Roberto Clemente Walker, to Forbes Field.
Yeah.
Now, do you think the Pirates were like, what's Walker? Like, who is that?
No.
Did they
Joe
know?
Brown knows.
They know?
They know, yeah. To tell you the truth, maybe they weren't sure did they mess that up or not. I grew up thinking Walker was his middle name because all the baseball cards and a lot of the paperwork says Roberto Walker Clemente. So maybe they were just like, oh, maybe that's not right, but we know who it is nonetheless. And they're like, oh, this is trouble, right? This is trouble for the Pirates.
Right. Now just give us a summary on what these Western Union...
Well, I believe, they're starting to talk to the draft board and stuff to see, can we get this recruit out of the draft by going into the reserves? And so Joe L. Brown's taking this upon himself to do this. Roberto doesn't know. He just knows, don't sign anything till let's see what happens here.
Okay.
And so that's what's going on. And in this letter here, he's saying, don't sign anything. We're going to help you with some of this. And that's what happens. And they get him out of the draft, and he goes to boot camp after the season ends. They let him play the whole season, 58.
Wow.
And he only goes during the off season. So he doesn't miss one baseball game. He's back up in spring training in 59 after boot camp ends. So he's,
Now, where were these photos? He's in full Pirate uniform here, but
both in Forbes Field.
Okay.
And here's the cool thing for me is during COVID, the photographer's son showed up here at my front door with new photos that I haven't got framed yet on the wall. These ones, he brought me a couple good copies of these ones. So his dad was taking these photos, and the Marines were telling him to go get these shots of Roberto and set up some really cool shots. And so this is, I know the date, it's September 11th, 1958 is when they're taking these photos right here, because he signs a baseball to the kid.
Wow.
Gives the kid who went with his father to take the photos. So really
wow,
cute.
that is really incredible.
Yeah, really cool.
And then moving on, we have, so Roberto wrote a letter.
Yes.
Is this to Joe L. Brown?
Yes.
And what does this basically say?
So he's basically apologizing for writing with a pencil. He's like, down here in boot camp, I'm not even allowed to have a pen. There's another letter where he says that it's lights out and he's underneath his covers writing another letter to Joe to send his baseball equipment down to the Marines because they asked him to be on the baseball team.
Oh, nice.
I'm working on trying to get that letter next. But this one here, he's saying, can you help pay my taxes till we get out of boot camp? They won extra $1,500 each for taking second place. And he's like, take care of that till I get out. And then, I'll see you shortly. But it's the envelope that is the killer piece that I had to have. And it's because it says Private Roberto C. Walker. But look at the address where he sends it. General Manager, Forbes Field, PA.
That's it.
Forbes Field, PA.
Yeah.
And it gets there because there's Joe L. Brown's initials saying that he read it. So to have this on that stationery, on that envelope, with that stamp and postmarked Parris Island, South Carolina, I mean, that's just precious right there.
And all of this that you have is extremely rare and it's very valuable. And just to note, this is his class picture, if you want to call it, from boot camp.
Yep.
And almost the first thing I noticed is he is the only man of color to graduate this group. Yep. And to be a leader coming out of the group and have so much respect for his other squad mates and things like that. And it kind of warms me a little bit.
Yeah, that says a lot, I think, for the Marines too, to make him platoon leader. That's pretty incredible. I mean,
yeah.
That's the kind of shows the man that he was, the character that he had. And so I would say for years, I'll bet you he wasn't getting any preferential treatment down there. And he didn't. They wanted him to blend in, and they didn't want to show that he was a baseball player, and they loved that it said Walker. They loved that. They could keep Clemente quiet until they broke out that baseball equipment. So to have that, and that was the one given to Roberto by the Marines. That was his image.
This is the original photo that Roberto got.
Yep, he would have held that photo. That's one that was given to us by Vera to help start the archive, and so that's an incredible piece right there to have in this museum.
I wonder how he did on that Marine Corps baseball team.
I think he did okay. They
decent?
won the division, is what Bob Terrell said. If there is a division, I'm not sure.
Lastly, I would say, just from the little bit you told me before, this piece, it's basically like a yearbook, but tell us more about the significance of this.
Yeah, so that was brought here by one of the platoon mates, and the awesome thing is that he brought it here on the day that Bob Terrell came here and sat with us and told us all these stories. And at the point, Bob was like, wait, I haven't seen a 58 yearbook. And so I'm telling stories, I get interviewed, I'm on TV talking about this, and some of the recruits that are in here, they said there was no yearbook in 58. Well, here it is.
Well,
there's
clearly.
a 58 yearbook. And the sad thing is that he cuts his image out and sends it to his girlfriend, and so he's not even in here.
So there is a little note here, and I like how you have a plaque to kind of decipher this, but Roberto wrote a personalized message to this person that is cut out, and it says, always stay yourself and you will go far in this world today. I'll always remember you. Look me up in Pittsburgh. And that was a personal message that Roberto said to his, I guess, platoon mate, Paul Sabata.
Sabata? Yeah.
So that is extremely special. And you can see from his photo, I mean, he was a very handsome guy.
Yes.
Like, he is just blends right in, but he sticks out as far as being the only man of color.
Yep.
But you would never, he didn't miss a beat as far as any treatment, any training. And this is just an incredible piece to have.
Super rare. We've been searching for another one for 20 some years and have never been able to find a 58. Only 50, every year in the 50s, except for 58, and I'm not sure why that is. And like I say, we've had guys fly here. I had a guy fly here from England. He's in this yearbook, and he came here because he did not believe that this existed. And he came in and saw this, and it was just like this. It was incredible.
I'm sure it's very emotional for some of these guys. Something that you never thought existed is now here.
He's now in this museum. And how about that he's there holding, as we were talking about, the rifle. There he is holding the rifle. I mean, this is incredible. So very blessed, very blessed. And nothing's better than that, though. So it just goes from this. What about that? Here he is in Pittsburgh. They're getting ready to ship him off the day he leaves.
He's in uniform, and he's in full military uniform. And this is
with Jim Brown of the Cleveland Browns. This is Mayor Barr, and this is David L. Lawrence, the governor of Pennsylvania. Look at that moment in time right there.
Wow.
Pretty incredible. Signed by Teenie Harris, the famous black photographer. So the whole thing is just incredible that it's here. It's an original, one of a kind of image. So all this stuff as a whole, it keeps evolving. We keep finding more stories, more images, and that's why I love it. And it's my favorite stuff on this whole wall.
And hopefully it just keeps growing. Hopefully you find more. Hopefully we get another yearbook maybe.
Yes. So if anybody out there has one, feel free to get a hold of the Clemente Museum, because the cover on this one is in very bad condition. and we're looking for another one because we want to put the cover on the wall.
Yeah.
But we don't want to. We bought a 59 and a 57, but they say the year on it, and so I don't want to put that up on the wall.
Right. Well, Duane, all of this is incredible, and I thank you so much for taking the time to show me and teach me, really, because no one really knows about this stuff.
No, until you come here.
Until you come here and see it.
Well, thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Not only was Roberto an outstanding baseball player, but he was also a gungy, gung-ho Marine. And finally, one last time, oorah, Roberto Clemente, oorah.